Well, welcome back, everyone. Episode 4, snapping around here. Boys, the season started, and there is lots of news to kind of talk about early on in the weekend here. One of these days, I'll figure out how to operate all this with the music playing there. But again, obviously, like opening weekend here, lots to talk about. We're gonna get to the Avs. Obviously, they've their struggles. Oilers, another team that are struggling right now. We'll touch on those guys. Gonna kick things off though here, boys, with some of the recent extensions that got announced and just shortly after we ended last pod. Kind of some of the big ones were the Verhaeghe, Allmark, and Decord extensions. Justin, you kind of brought up the Decord one. I didn't even see it until you put it in our notes here. Kind of what's your overall thoughts on those three and then some other recent smaller extensions that have happened, obviously?
Um, yeah, I surprised the Verhaeghe one took this long because I remember shortly after they won the cup, they were talking about like an extension kind of starting to get done for him, and then it kind of went quiet. They got Reinhardt done and did a lot of other off season business, but I'm happy to see him finally sign, kind of get a um, long term deal that kind of secures him for a while because he jumped around quite a bit for his early career, and he's finally got a home now in Florida. And then yeah, I don't know, like the Decord one's interesting. He's another guy that's had a it's took a bit, but has found a home, but he hasn't had a lot of playing time full time either. So now Seattle's kind of got two guys making around five and a half that like they're both decent. I think I just not sure which one can be, 50 or 60 game starter. And well, we saw it with Grubauer and with the Avalanche, but was never able to be the one that could put them over.
You brought up the Avs there, and that's just it. Like you see a team like Seattle with these goalies, and there's some other teams with really strong tandems. And again, we'll get to this with the Avs later in the episode here, but teams struggling in net and teams having kind of thin creases, we might start seeing some early season action in terms of goalie swaps here. But Trav, Allmark 4-year extension in Ottawa, probably the same number as his old buddy Swayman in Boston. I mean, kind of was this kind of one because he's getting up there in age. I mean, he's already over that 30 mark plateau. Is this more one where he basically said to the Senators, look, you traded for me. You obviously want me here. So prove to me that you actually want to keep me.
Yeah, definitely. He kind of fits the puzzle piece that they've been missing for quite a while in a good solid number one. Obviously they still have holes in their lineup that I think they're going to have to address before they are a real serious team. But yeah, locking him up to a big deal. I think that was kind of a no-brainer for the Sens, and definitely one that, like you say, Allmark kind of had the ball in his court there with that one. He said he's happy over there, which is good to hear because I know it was I think a pretty big deal for him to leave Boston, and I know with the rumors last year, and he declined a trade to somewhere out west that I don't know if it was ever reported where, but
I think indication said the Kings.
That's what I thought, yeah. But nonetheless, yeah, good for him. I think it's a good deal for Ottawa too at the end of the day.
The only issue you have is they tried this exact same thing last summer with Korpisalo. Like same management group signed Korpisalo to that free agent extension, I believe, and he didn't really pan out that greatest last year. So it's kind of one like if you're a fan of Ottawa, you're kind of a little weary of that same scenario here. Like, is it really the goaltending or is it the team in front?
I don't think Allmark sets the world on fire by any means, but I mean, given a choice between him and Corpusalo, I'd probably go with Allmark 9 times out of 10.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like Corpusalo's numbers have always been inflated by strong defensive teams. Allmark spent how many years in Buffalo behind their tire fire of a situation, and he actually put up pretty stellar numbers considering all that. So his success in Boston wasn't overly surprising to a lot of people. It was more just, I think, how good he actually did prove to be when he had a good team in front of him. Justin, going back to your Verhaeghe one though, like this guy bounced around from Toronto system to the Islanders. He finally got in the NHL with Tampa, and now he's, what was that, a 7-year, $50 million deal that he just signed with Florida after helping them win a cup. Like, this is just a guy that just shows all the young hockey players out there that maybe don't have the initial break, just keep at it and just believe in your own skill, because it'll eventually pay off for you at some point.
Yeah, that's basically just it. Like, for so long, he kind of wasn't proven, kind of traded around and just, playing in the AHL. He's in the ECHL for like a while too. And then, finally kind of got his big break with Tampa and then went over to Florida and, like started putting up 20, 30, then 40 goals a year. It is a good, he's a good player to look at for those guys where it's like, you don't need to be first, second, third, fourth rounder to like have success in this league. You just kind of got to keep at it and find something you're good at just to get in the lineup. And then, eventually things will start to go right. But I was happy to see it. I've kind of been a fan of him for the last few years, especially in the playoffs, because he's kind of always been somewhat clutch, but you're just always kind of scoring goals at the right time to kind of get his team going. So a bit of slow start to the year through 4 games, but it'll turn around for him. He's too good to stay this quiet.
Yeah, and the Panthers have played lots of hockey over the last 2 seasons, so it's going to be a bit of a slower start for them. They're kind of just going to ease into the season, I would think. With all the extensions, though, I kind of want to bring us back to what we touched on, I believe, the first episode of this season with the Dylan Guenther extension that happened in Utah. I don't know, Justin, you kind of said that he's been was getting paid more with that extension than what he'd actually posted point-wise in the league so far, and 5 points in 4 games to start, and all of them goals. I mean, he is just making Utah look so smart right now with that extension, with how he is lighting the lamp.
Oh yeah, he's making them look pretty smart. He's, wouldn't say I'm like eating my words. I just thought it was a pretty big contract for a guy, what he's shown. But I mean, like we've said time over time, that this is the way it's going. And, if he kind of keeps this up, obviously it's not going to stay at this pace, but, he's showing in the last, 50 some games he's been in the NHL that he can easily be like a 30 to 40 goal scorer, because his shot is ridiculous. Like that overtime goal, I think it was against the Islanders the other night, was it like he shot it from like the top of the circles, and I don't even think Varlamov moved before it like went behind him. So I think, he's only 22 years old. So like Keller was saying on the one podcast, like he hasn't, like he's got probably the best shot next to Matthews that he's seen. Like, I mean, I'm not going to argue anything like that, but his shot is pretty wicked. So it is nice to see, like, and, it's great for Utah, like, especially their hot start too.
Yeah, they've definitely got off to a really good start, riding the wave of probably just not having any rumors swirl around and just controversies around where they're playing this year. They've just been able to focus on playing hockey and not have to think in the back of their mind, like, why the fuck are we playing in a college rink and getting paid these millions when everyone else gets the top of the line quality care from all the other teams. But like Justin kind of touched on it there, like all the young players getting signed so early. It's especially in Utah's case, it's one where it's not going to be long before they have to really start making decisions on who their young core is, because you got guys like Cooley and Doan. You're going to have TJ Ginla coming up. You have that Shimashev from 2023 draft. Event, like, you can only hand out so many contracts, and are the Coyotes just starting to set themselves up to be looking to make some major moves because they're going to have to start signing these young guys to big contracts here?
The Coyotes. I like that.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'm probably going to do that more than once this season, I swear.
They need a name.
Oh, it's apparently going to be
Coyote?
Yeti.
Yeah.
Which actually, Trav, before you go,
Yep.
all the rumors we've heard say that Utah is going to be the Yeti next season. What's our thoughts on that, given that all three of us are Avs fans here? Because Colorado has the Yeti foot, and they kind of originated the whole Yeti concept in the NHL.
As an Avs fan, I mean, it's like I don't really care about that so much. I just think Utah Yeti sounds like a terrible fucking name, if I'm being honest. It just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't flow out well. I don't like the way that comes off my tongue.
Yeah, I'm kind of basically in the same boat as Trav. I feel like there's a lot of better options out there that could probably represent Utah even a little bit better. But I mean, it seems like it's the worst kept secret for what their name is, because like their color scheme kind of has it going right now. Unless they're completely just kind of playing rope-a-dope, and they're going to come out with something completely different.
The first all pink uniform.
I will say their jerseys do look like pretty nice for what they are. Like when you're watching them, like they do.
I like them. I think they're great.
Yeah, they look crisp for as much flack as they got with the color scheme, kind of following the Tampa Toronto line. They look very crisp. But Trav, let you get back to the original point there. Just the young roster of Utah having to start making decisions here within the next few seasons.
Yeah, it's I really like the future ahead for Utah. Probably one of the most exciting in the league right now. But yeah, it's definitely getting to kind of crunch time where they got this whirlpool of talent, and they got to kind of really weed out who's going to be the top dogs, who's going to be the guys that they're leaning on, the youth that they're leaning on moving forward here. I wouldn't be surprised in 2 or 3 years time if you see some of these guys that they got in their prospect pool getting moved just because of all these guys that are going to need contracts. And I guess like sort of the guys that they're kind of weeding out end up getting traded elsewhere. And that's a situation too where too many cooks in the kitchen there. Some of these guys might not pan out in Utah, and they'll get a chance to go elsewhere and find their game and develop into the player that they were meant to be in Utah.
That's just it. Like, they've had so many draft picks that they've failed to, because of their old owner in Arizona. He didn't want to spend a lot of money, so they didn't use all this draft capital to bring in legit current NHL players, and they had to use it on picks and prospects, and they're starting to find a lot of gems in this arsenal of prospects they have. But like you said, Trev, it's starting to get to too many cooks in the kitchen. You're going to have a bunch of guys coming up that need to play top 6 minutes, and they're going to be too filled up with guys that are only a year or two older than them. So I think it's going to be a fascinating situation in Utah over the next 2-3 seasons, just to see how they maneuver throughout this young core, really stepping into the NHL and stepping into their own games.
over the next 2 years, rounds 1 through 3, they have 10 draft picks.
Yeah, I have a feeling they're not making all 10.
No, especially if they keep this up early this year. Like they're not gonna be like, oh, let's wait and see how this goes. They'll be going for it as much as they can.
Yeah, it's now that they have an owner that's willing to spend and actually wants to be successful with the team. Those, I bet you they're down to maybe 3 or 4 by the time all is said and done. Like they'll probably spend those like candy. But obviously, it's nice to see Utah off to a hot start. It's obviously helped hockey grow. Just that team and that franchise get off with the fan base really good. It's always tough if you struggle out of the gate there. But guys, there's been teams struggling this year so far, and teams that you probably expect come March and April are going to be just fine and towards the top of the league standings again. But like Colorado, Edmonton, throw in Nashville there too. 3 teams in the West that I think all 3 of us kind of pegged as top 4, top 5 teams in the conference and winless. Like, I mean, Nashville, you can kind of make a case because they've had so much turnover in their top 6 and on like some top pair guys coming in. It might take a few games to get everyone sorted. But what's your thoughts on especially a team like Edmonton and Colorado, who their core is there, their core is one of the best in the league, and they're just falling flat right now?
I mean, I'll start. Like, I think we'll probably go into Colorado here more in depth here shortly. But the thing I've noticed with Edmonton is they're not really getting a lot of saves, and they're not really getting they're not scoring a lot either. Like, at least with the Avs, at least for the first 2 games, they're putting up 4 goals a game. They just weren't getting any saves. With Edmonton, they're not really getting anything. I don't know if like those guys, like their big dogs, are still a little drained from the long season and maybe the intense off season they maybe had. But and with all like the depth that they brought in, like they had a pretty stacked 2.5, forward lines, and nothing's really showing. Like I think Draisaitl has a goal. McDavid doesn't have any goals right now. I don't even know. He might have like maybe an assist or 2 through 3 games. So so it's pretty wild to see, but I also really don't expect it to last a long time. And like we've seen with their goaltending situation, especially Skinner, he's pretty hot and cold at times, right? Like when he's down, he's bad, but when he turns it on, like he's one of the better Canadian goaltenders in the league.
I think this would be less of a storyline. I think if it were at any other point of the season, like obviously JC said there, like Edmonton's just not scoring. That's their issue right now. Colorado's not getting goaltending. You said it, Brock. Nashville's got quite a different looking roster from this year to last. I'm certainly not ready to hit the panic button on any of these teams yet, just because it is so early, and it's very easy for a team of any of these 3's calibers to go on a skid like this in the midseason and nobody bats an eye to it. But because we're at the start of the season, it's a talking point right now. But you start getting past the 10 game mark, that's when you start, I think, maybe not hitting the panic button, but you're certainly like, wondering where the change has got to be, wondering where the ship gets back on the right path.
You kind of nailed it on the head there, Trav. This happens. They're 2 and 3 game skids. This happens in January. No one, like there's concern, but no one really thinks twice about it. The fact that it's so early in the season and you're still sitting there with a goose egg in the win column. It just sends up a bit of a red flag for a fan base and some analysts, because these are teams that, again, you expect to pile up those wins and you'd think they'd come fairly early in the season. But it's one though too. Justin, you and I talked about it before we jumped on recording here. The Avs started 0-3 back in 2022. The Oilers started like shit last year. Like, yeah, they had a win, but they started with maybe 2 wins in all of October. Like, I think now there's so much emphasis on how teams can like lose a playoff spot in October. But I think now we've also seen in the last 6 seasons, the Blues and the Oilers have done it twice each have done it where they've been down and out. They've been bottom of the league. And yet once, like around December time in January, and yet they made the playoffs and both made the cup final. St. Louis ended up winning. Yeah, you can point to them as kind of offhand, off-key marks because they're once every so many years that it might happen. I just think the fact where you look at last year's Oilers and you just compare their roster to the Avs, that top-end talent will carry them. And the league just hasn't gotten enough parity across teams right now. Like, there's still enough bottom feeder teams where that a team like Colorado will eventually just feast on them. They're too much talent. They're too good. Like, the Oilers and the Avs are going to feast here soon, and it's just taken a little bit of time. Kind of goes back to 2 episodes ago when we talked about preseason. Like, neither team really played their guys much in preseason, so these first 5 games are really going to be their preseason games. This is like they're just getting their feet into the water, really getting back up to true game speed right now. So again, I think it's one where different issues on each team, but you kind of looked at the other night Edmonton-Calgary game, and Edmonton had 2 goals called back. Like, either of those go the other way, and who knows, they might have won that game and their offense might be exploding. But 25 NHL seasons fully begun. Whether it's the sound of opening puck drop, skates carving up the ice, or that ping as your team goes bar down for a game winner, you can make the memories and catch all those sounds with Game Time. Game Time's Game Picks section on their website has now offered better curating to everyone's ideal ticket situation, whether it's for live sports, concerts, comedy shows, theater shows, whatever it is, Game Time has you covered. Seat viewing allows you to view what you're going to see from your seat before you even go. Along with Game Time's low price guaranteed, you'll always make sure to get the lowest price on tickets, or you'll get 110% of your money back. So make sure to take the guesswork out of tickets with Game Time's picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. The puck is down and the 24-25 season is underway, which means the quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook betting partner of the NHL. Whether you're a first-time bettor just looking for a simple pick team to win, or whether you're a seasoned bettor looking to do parlays and up your game, you get it all done at DraftKings Sportsbook app. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Again, we've kind of brought up Colorado's issues, goaltending. 3 games, 3 starts for Georgiev. What's our thoughts here, boys? Because I think he's been pulled in all 3.
Yeah, I think he suffered through all last night. I want to say, but I didn't watch it. I was going to rewatch it today, but I woke up and saw kind of what happened and read a lot about it, so I didn't bother. But he's lost again. We saw it a bit last year, and we didn't, which was weird because we didn't really see that at all. The first year he was playing for the Avs, he was pretty solid, but he looks lost. Like, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on in his head. Like, it looks like he doesn't really have any confidence when he's in there. Like, he lets in so many bad goals, and coming from someone that doesn't really know anything about goaltending, there's a lot of things that look really off. And I imagine the big thing right now is his confidence. Cause like, I don't know, look at the playoffs last year. He let in 8 the first game, whatever, 7 or 8 the first game, and then he turned it on. So he's kind of a weird goalie like that. But right now, I'm not sure what they're gonna do with him if they once they get Kakinen in the lineup, like he gets his visa issue sorted out. Maybe they just set him aside for a week this early in the year, just be like, hey man, just take a rest here, practice, something like that. I don't know, like a reset maybe. But clearly putting him in the net every night isn't really fixing the problem. But it is 3 games, but still there's been no signs of any improvement whatsoever.
I think best case scenario for Colorado, and as a fan, whether you like it or not, is for one of these 3 guys to eventually pan out. And obviously last year Georgiev panned out for the for the 2 rounds of playoffs that we played, but one stinker to start the year. I'm not batting an eye, but 3 straight in a row now where you've got absolutely lit up. And I know last night was a little different because I think the Islanders overall just played a better game last night. But I mean, regardless, they still got 5 by him last night, coupled with 6 against the Blue Jackets and 5 against the Knights or whatever it was. I don't know specifically, but I just mentioned before about not hitting the panic button this early on teams like Colorado and Nashville and Edmonton. But I think this particular situation, I think you're getting close to hitting the button there. The team as a whole, I think we'll figure it out. They're too good not to be in the playoffs, but this is a problem that needs to be seriously addressed sooner than later.
That's just it. Like the first 2 games, goaltending. I mean, the team, when you score 4 goals a game, 4 or 5 goals, you should be able to win in this league. And the fact that they lost both those 2 just shows goaltending. You kind of said it. Like last night, the Islanders were just the better team, but it's still Colorado was up 1-0, and that first goal from Anders Lee just cannot go in. Georgiev's soft on his post, it squeaks by him, and it's a backbreaker because Colorado had good momentum. They controlled the early part of that game. Callum Ritchie, congrats to him. He got his first career NHL goal. And it all came undone with a soft goal let in again. And that's just seemed to be the story early on with Colorado's goaltenders of they seem to be getting going. They seem to start getting that snowball rolling downhill of their offense, and a soft goal goes in or a fluky goal goes in. And it's just a backbreaker. Again, they're probably going to hope one of these 3 guys work out or everything just kind of balances out here, but it's going to be tough if this is the type of goaltending Colorado is going to get at times throughout the season. Just it's going to be tough to go into the playoffs with it because it's just not sustainable. Like, it's not what's the word? It's not consistent enough.
Feasible.
Like, feasible is a good one, but right now they're consistently bad, but the fact you could have a Georgiev who you can argue pushes into a top 10, top 15 goaltender in the league, or you can have a Georgiev who's very not even a real NHL backup depending on his game. So it's a tough spot for the Avs this early in the season, but going to last night's game and even watching the first, seeing highlights of the first two games, is Colorado's overall game plan. Does Bednar need to go back to the drawing board of how he gets this roster to play? Because they give up a lot on the rush. They're very susceptible early on this season to rush chances. And that just seems to be what kills them the most. They seem fine when they're in their own zone defending. It's when teams attack off the rush, they just seem to get lost and lose their man. And then you're asking your goaltenders for these big saves. And obviously, even the elite goaltenders aren't going to always give you that big save when you need it, when it's a 3-on-2 or a 3-on-1 opportunity.
Not even a big save, just a save. Oh, man. I watched the Columbus game, and they're down 3-1. They fight their way back 3-3, let in a stinker. And then Anunin comes in and lets in a fluke. But, it's something not even asking for big saves right now. You're just asking for a timely save. And then, you lose all the momentum. But back to what you were saying, you are kind of onto something about the way they're playing. They aren't defending that well on the rush. And I think a lot of guys right now, because there's so many top players missing in this lineup, that some of the guys are trying to do a bit too much to try to overcompensate for maybe the talent and experience that they have on the roster right now, where I think that if they're able to is to just maybe simplify it a little bit more, get McKinnon and Makar to just relax a little bit. Your talent's good enough. Just you just need to simplify it a bit. There's nothing wrong with what they're doing. They're scoring. Middlestat has basically a goal every game, but there's the smaller details that need to focus on and just, I think, simplify it a little bit more, especially, when the puck is starting to come out of the offensive zone, because you're right, Brock. It looks like they get really lost kind of coming back. But at the end of the day, even if they do that and whatnot, if they don't get a save on just, more or less 95% of those chances that should be stopped, then it's just kind of a moot point.
It's again, you can go to NHL Edge and look at the advanced stats of both goaltenders. It's ugly, below the 50th percentile in almost every category. You said it, Justin, just a save. That's all the Avs need at times, is a save. Doesn't have to be this big flashy Igor Shesterkin windmill glove save from last night. It literally just needs to be a save.
Yeah.
And you look back at 2022 when the Avs won it, the Avs weren't asking Darcy Kemper to outduel Andre Vasilevsky. They were just asking him to, we need you to make the one save when it's called upon. That's it. And we could probably all pick it out in game 6 early in the third period. Avs up 2-1, and Kucherov with a one-timer in the slot. Kemper turned him aside, and that was kind of the game. You almost just felt the Avs relax after that, because they're okay, there's the one. Let's just calm down, and we can shut them down from here. Whereas, it just seems right now that they're not getting that save, and now they're top guys are overcompensating because they're holding the sticks a little too tight, trying to just do a little too much. And it's tough because, again, like you said, they're missing so many key guys in their top six that you're asking guys like Kovalenko and Richie to play those minutes. And as rookies in this league, Richie is a 19-year-old. They're going to have nights. It's going to be a learning curve for them. It's just, I don't know. What's our thoughts on how far do the Avs take this goaltending before they really start to seriously look for replacements and for long-term fixes in the net?
I just want somebody to pan out. That's all I want. Because this pretty much goes right back to the middle of last season when we started same questions about Georgiev. What does Colorado need to address the problem? The problem for Colorado is cap space. They don't have a lot of room to go out and get themselves a solid goaltender. That isn't going to bite them down the line in terms of money. So, like I said, I'm just reiterating what I said before. But yeah, the best case scenario for Colorado is for one of these three guys to pan out, for somebody to take the bull by the horns in the net, basically.
I think that their idea was that was going to be a Noonan, and ideally you had like Georgiev. That was where the 3-year contract with Georgiev came in. It's okay. Noonan came up last year. He showed solidly. He's still learning the game of at the NHL level. Like there's still lots in his game that needs to be refined, but he shows the promise of being a starting goaltender in this league. But it's one where he learns how to put his game together to be the best version of himself in this league, the Avs need Georgiev to find that form of what he had in the first season with him. And he's just seemed to have gone downhill since that Seattle playoff loss. Like even last year against the Jets, we touched on in the playoffs, they won despite Georgiev. Like, yes, he's going to have games here and there where he's outstanding, but since that first year with Colorado, it just has not been. It seems to each year his game just slowly deteriorates into he's not a starting goalie in this league. He's at best a 1B option. Like he's a guy that's can give you 40, 50 games, maybe, probably more likely 30 to 40 games in a season. But I think it's one, you need to give a Noonan a good run here. Like this is what I think what the Avs have to do is Noonan needs a good run of about 3 or 4 games, maybe push it towards 5 or 6, and just see how he settles in and see if he can't claim that net. That's maybe the one fault I have with Bednar is he's so much in love with certain veteran players and just he knows what they're going to bring, but just you kind of touched on it. Goaltending such a volatile, like no one knows how to really assess goaltending, and it's such a volatile position. You can't rely on the same guy game after game when you see him struggling.
Yeah, no, it's tough. And you say, how long does this go on for? How long do they ride this out for one of them to find it? And I mean, just with it this year, it just seems a lot different. If this was, any other year if they had more of a healthy roster, I'd say they've got the time and whatnot. But here you're kind of thinking like, this is basically our roster for the next, for this month of October. Like, how much longer do they have to figure this out? Like Trav said, it's been going on for almost a year now with Georgiev. He started off hot last year, like pretty hot, and then it's just been inconsistent at best. Like, it's mostly just been like he's not even been league average, right? Like, honestly, all they need is consistent league average goaltending. And that's not asking a whole lot for someone you want to be your starting goaltender. As much as they need guys back, they need that. Like, it sounds so simple, yet this team has had a rough time getting it since December last year.
That's yeah, like not a lot of teams in the NHL, even top teams. It's tough to win in the league when you're getting below league average goaltending. This just brings me to another thought, though, too. We've touched on the Avs' defense against rush chances. And we kind of touched on, I believe, last year in the playoffs against Dallas when Nichushkin went out again. It just reinforces, especially without Lekin in there even to start this season. This just reinforces how important a player like Lehkonen or Nichushkin or Landeskog is to this roster, because those are your true two-way guys. Like right now, everyone knows Colorado can score, but right now they don't have that top six player of that defensive stalwart top six forward that like you just throw out there and it's like, okay, in any season, he's going to give me 20 goals, upwards of 70, 80 points, but he's also going to be someone I can rely on to put in a PK or put on the ice at the end of the game to shut teams down. They don't have that right now. Like Mac and Rantanen, sure, they're decent enough defensively, but they're not that stalwart guy. They're not the defensively acumen of a Lehkonen even, and then Nichushkin's kind of the top tier in what the Avs have in that. And without him, it's going to take him a little bit to get back up to game speed. This is maybe one too where like, how long does this go on before it becomes a serious question for McFarland of, do we punt the season or do we have to make an immediate fix and maybe regret something in 2-3 years?
Go for the kick, I think.
Do you think punt it?
Yep.
All right. So then
the way I see it is we already have probably one of the lower end futures in the NHL right now, just in terms of our prospect pool, the cup tax, McKinnon and Rantanen are in their primes right now. Obviously they're still going to be elite players for years to come, but time isn't slowing down. I would hate to see the Avs get themselves into trouble 2 and 3 years down the line if they're able to kind of ride out the window longer. Is kind of where I'm going with that. Make the window last as long as possible, because there's going to come a day when we're not going to be there.
And that's just it. Like, I guess your only thing is you talked about Rantanen. You're still trying to prove to him that you're a contending team. So that's maybe the flip side of the coin. If you punt it, there's a risk that Rantanen's either going to want overpaid because he's like, you guys need me to be a contending team, or he's just going to not want to be here. And that's maybe the biggest risk you have of punting it. But I do like, so Trav, what would the breaking point be in terms of your decision? Like, what's the timeline of when you would make the decision to just punt the year?
Before Christmas.
Yeah. So like, say the Avs are sitting at about 5 wins or something middle of November. Like, is that doing it, or even say they're just below 500, but they're sitting 13th in the West by about mid-December, like right before the roster freeze of World Juniors.
Yeah, somewhere around there. If they have 5 wins in November, I still think that's too early. I still think there's time to do an Edmonton-esque comeback, and I fully believe that Colorado is more than capable of that. At the end of the day, I'm still a firm believer that Colorado is a much stronger team than over half the West. So, but if you, like you said there, Brock, if they're sitting in that position right around the World Junior era of December, then yes, I would, at that point, I would, just call for a season punt, basically.
Okay. Like, I think you mentioned the Oiler-esque comeback of if they're sitting at this in November. That kind of brings you to the Oilers had a similar situation last year where they couldn't get a save from their goaltenders. So it's literally just any Avs fan just has to go back to last season and look and say, okay, Edmonton couldn't get, like, they had below league average goaltending to start last season. And then all of a sudden they got league average goaltending, which climbed into a little better than league average goaltending. And then eventually Stuart Skinner just found his game and they went to the Cup final, Game 7. Colorado's roster is very similar to how Edmonton's is built. Like, you have your top end guys, you have some top end defensemen, and you can just score your way out of a lot of problems. You just need that league average goaltending, and everything kind of is all roses and daisies from there because skill will win out on them. But it's obviously a situation we're going to just need to watch as this season continues and October rolls on here, boys. But anything else to add on the Avs here?
No, I think, they get through these next 2 months and they're around 500, a game below or a game above, just because, middle of November is when Nuke is reinstated. November 13th is the day he's back. That's hopefully, we're knock on wood, any other fucking injuries happen to this roster, they'll have their top 6 set. Everybody shifts back to their original spots. Maybe they find some consistent goaltending by then. It would be around that time, like, the World Juniors, like, if they're still like really bad, like not really close to 500, that's when I'd probably start to consider about doing something with, just for this year, maybe just like a little retool for the rest of the year. Like, I don't know what you do, but like, I don't know if you consider moving Rantanen, or are you like a Drouin or something. Like, if it's just like this ain't working out, and then with Drouin you probably go back to him in the off season. But just the Rantanen one is huge because, that's a big time player. And if you really think that this season is over, you just, I don't know. I don't even know if they'd ever even consider that. But
yeah, moving Rantanen would be tough.
That could be an episode conversation, probably.
Yeah, well, that's it. We'll see how this goes throughout October. I think Lucky's back at the end of the month. Like you said, Nuke's back a few weeks into November. There's too much skill on this team to continue this way. They just need a save. It's all they need. So we'll wrap things up here, boys. Keep her short this week. We ran long the last 2, but we'll let the early season play out some more. We'll maybe go around the league and just see what other surprises teams have for us over the next week, as some teams have only played 1 game. So we'll get into some other teams and some other situations here next week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, on Snapping Around, and catch you guys later.